Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're journeying back in time, over 2,500 years, to the very foundations of Western legal thought. We're going to explore the birth of Roman law, a system so influential that its echoes can still be heard in courtrooms and legal codes all around the world. And at the heart of this legal revolution is a monumental document known as the 12 Tables. So, picture this. It's the 5th century BC in Rome. The city is a bustling, growing power, but it's also a society deeply divided. You have the patricians, the wealthy aristocratic landowning class who hold all the power. They control the government, the military, and most importantly, the law. On the other side, you have the plebeians, the common folk, the farmers, merchants, and artisans. They are the backbone of Rome, but they have very few rights and are often at the mercy of the patricians. A huge source of tension was that the law wasn't written down. It was a collection of customs and traditions, interpreted and enforced exclusively by patrician magistrates. Imagine being a plebeian farmer in a dispute with a powerful patrician neighbor. The judge is a patrician, the law is whatever he says it is, and you have no way of knowing if you're being treated fairly. This uncertainty and potential for abuse created a powder keg of social unrest. The plebeians were tired of it. They knew that without a clear public and impartial set of rules, they would never be secure. This conflict, known as the conflict of the orders, reached a boiling point. The plebeians organized, they protested, and in a bold move, they even seceded from the city, refusing to work or fight until their demands were met. Their primary demand, that the law be written down for all to see. They wanted transparency and an end to the arbitrary rulings of the elite. This pressure campaign worked. The patricians, realizing they couldn't run Rome without the plebeians, finally relented. So, in 451 BC, a special committee of 10 men, the Decemviri, was appointed to draft a code of law. They allegedly traveled to Greece to study the laws of Solon in Athens, drawing inspiration from other advanced legal systems. After a year of work, they produced 10 bronze tablets inscribed with laws. The next year, 2 more were added, completing what we now know as the 12 Tables. These tablets were then erected in the Roman Forum, the bustling heart of the city, for everyone to see. This was a game changer. For the first time, the law was public. It was no longer a secret weapon of the elite. A farmer, a merchant, or any Roman citizen could walk into the forum and read the law for themselves. This act of publication was a massive victory for the plebeians and a cornerstone of Roman liberty. It established the principle that the law applies to everyone and that no one is above it, a concept that remains fundamental to modern justice. Now, what was actually on these tables? Unfortunately, the original bronze tablets were destroyed when the Gauls sacked Rome in 390 BC, but their content was so important that it was memorized by schoolchildren, quoted by lawyers, and referenced by historians for centuries. Thanks to these later writers like Cicero and Livy, we've been able to reconstruct a large portion of them. The 12 Tables weren't a comprehensive constitution in the modern sense. They were a collection of specific, practical laws designed to address the most common disputes of the time. They covered everything from family law and property rights to debt and courtroom procedures. For instance, they laid out the process for summoning someone to court. If you called a man to court and he refused to go, you could physically compel him to appear before the magistrate. It was direct and nonsense. The laws concerning property were also incredibly detailed. They specified rules about boundaries between farms, what to do if a neighbor's tree branches hung over your land, and how to handle disputes over ownership. This reflects the reality of an agrarian society where land was the primary source of wealth and conflict. The tables also dealt with debt, which was a major issue for plebeians. While the punishments could be harsh, the laws provided a clear, if unforgiving, process, removing the arbitrary cruelty that existed before. But perhaps one of the most significant aspects of the 12 Tables was how it began to define what it meant to be a Roman citizen. Before the tables, your rights were largely tied to your family's social standing, but this new written law applied to all citizens, patrician and plebeian alike. This created a new, shared legal identity. The law was no longer just a tool of the powerful. It was the common property of the Roman people, the res publica. This brings us to the crucial concept of Roman citizenship. What did it actually mean to be a civis Romanus? In the early Republic, it was a status that conferred an incredible bundle of rights and responsibilities. First and foremost was the right to vote in the assemblies and the right to stand for public office. Though in the early days, high office was still a patrician privilege. This was the core of a citizen's political power. Citizens also had the right to make legal contracts and to own property under the protection of Roman law or jus commerci. This was vital for economic life. And they had the right to a legal marriage recognized by the state, the jus conabi, which ensured that their children would also be Roman citizens and could inherit their property. Interestingly, the 12 Tables initially forbade intermarriage between patricians and plebeians, showing that social barriers were still strong. But this ban was repealed just a few years later, another victory for the plebeians. One of the most cherished rights was the right to a fair trial and the right to appeal a magistrate's decision to the citizen assembly, the jus provocationis. This was a powerful check on the abuse of power. A magistrate could simply sentence a citizen to a severe punishment without the people having the final say. It was a guarantee against tyranny. The famous cry, "I appeal to the people," was a citizen's ultimate legal shield. So, the 12 Tables didn't create all these rights out of thin air, but they codified them. They took these abstract ideas and principles and literally set them in stone, or rather, bronze. They confirmed that every citizen, regardless of their wealth, was subject to the same legal process. The law might say that a thief gets punished, but the process for proving he's a thief was now the same for everyone. This principle of equality before the law was revolutionary. Of course, we have to be realistic. The early Roman Republic was far from a modern democracy. The laws in the 12 Tables were often harsh by our standards. For example, a father had life and death power over his children, and citizenship was not universal. It excluded women from political life, and of course, it excluded the vast population of slaves, who were considered property with no rights at all. However, the importance of the 12 Tables cannot be overstated. They established a foundation of legal procedure and transparency that would shape Roman law for the next 1,000 years. They were the starting point from which Roman jurists would develop a sophisticated and complex legal science, creating concepts like contracts, negligence, and private property that we still use today. The spirit of the 12 Tables, that law should be public, stable, and apply to all citizens, became a defining feature of the Roman Republic. It fostered a sense of civic duty and legal order that was crucial to Rome's stability and its eventual expansion. The idea that you were a citizen protected by a known set of laws, not just a subject ruled by the whims of a king, was a powerful and unifying force. As Rome grew from a city-state into a world-spanning empire, the concept of citizenship evolved. It was gradually extended to people outside of Rome, first in Italy and eventually, in 212 AD, to all free inhabitants of the empire. This was a tool of integration, a way of turning conquered peoples into Romans, and what they were being offered was not just a title, but access to the protection and predictability of Roman law, a system whose seeds were sown right back in that forum with those 12 simple bronze tablets. So when we think about the legacy of Rome, we often think of legions, aqueducts, and emperors. But perhaps its most enduring legacy is the idea that a society should be governed by written laws, not by the arbitrary will of powerful individuals. The struggle of the plebeians and their victory in establishing the 12 Tables was a crucial step in the long, ongoing journey toward justice and the rule of law. It's a story of how ordinary people demanding fairness can fundamentally change the course of history. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into early Roman law. If you found this interesting, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more journeys into our incredible past. Let me know in the comments what other aspects of Roman history you'd like to explore. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.